The sound of rustling leaves was replaced by an eerie silence as Ryan stepped into the clearing. The air felt thick and stagnant, a stark contrast to the lively forest surrounding him. Curiosity had pulled him here, yet now he was frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He glanced back over his shoulder, half expecting to see the familiar shapes of deer or the fluttering of birds taking flight, but nothing stirred. It was as if the forest itself had exhaled, pushing him into a hidden world that had long been forgotten. There was something unsettling about this place. Deer, foxes, even birds had avoided this section of the forest, creating an invisible barrier Ryan had never noticed until now. He had spent years in these mountains, patrolling, studying wildlife, but this was different. The metal stakes protruding from the earth seemed to tell a story of their own, an ominous reminder of something buried long ago. The sharp edges glinted in the fading sunlight, casting strange shadows that danced in the corners of his vision. Ryan's mind raced as he scanned the clearing. Old barrels, some half buried in the ground, bore faded labels from a chemical plant that had been shut down years before. The name was barely legible, but it stirred something deep within him, a memory. His father had worked at that factory, had come home each day smelling of chemicals, only to succumb to the very thing everyone whispered about. The cancer that took him too soon, too young. The thought knotted in Ryan's stomach, twisting with anger and grief. He crouched down beside a wooden box that had been left carelessly at the base of a gnarled oak. Inside, he found documents, plastic-wrapped reports that seemed to hold the weight of secrets. As he flipped through the papers, the names of officials popped out, people who still wielded power in the county. Each name felt like a dagger, reminding him of the ties that bound the past to the present, trapping the truth beneath layers of neglect and indifference. The air felt charged with unspoken truths. A chilly breeze swept through the clearing, stirring the leaves around him, whispering of cover-ups and buried histories. Ryan's brow furrowed. The animals had sensed danger, a threat buried beneath the surface that humans had chosen to ignore. It was as if the forest had become a guardian, warning him away from something he was not yet ready to confront. Would he report what he found? Would he risk the safety and livelihood of families who had already suffered the consequences of that factory? Or would he bury the truth, just as they had done before? The weight of those decisions pressed down on him, and for a moment, he felt the gravity of the world. The forest around him thrived, yet it was clear that the darkness hidden just below its surface threatened everything he held dear. With a heavy heart, Ryan left the clearing, knowing that facing the truth might mean facing the past he had long tried to outrun. Behind him, the silence of the clearing deepened, a testament to the secrets it held, secrets he could no longer ignore. Ryan trudged back through the dense underbrush, the sounds of the forest gradually returning to him, a rustle of leaves, the distant call of a hawk, and the soft murmurs of a nearby stream. Yet the normalcy of it all felt like a cruel joke against the backdrop of the unsettling discovery he had just made. He had always found solace in these mountains, a landscape that had cradled his childhood and shaped his adult life as a wildlife conservation officer. Today, however, their beauty seemed tainted by the shadows lurking just beneath the surface. As he approached his modest cabin, a familiar sight that felt both comforting and suffocating, he was hit by the lingering aroma of the coffee he had brewed that morning. The flickering old radio on the kitchen counter filled the silence with the voices of a local talk show, but Ryan barely heard a word. His mind was elsewhere, swirling with the weight of the documents he had discovered. His father's face flashed in his mind, an image both vivid and painful. He could see him in faded jeans, wiping his brow after a long shift at the factory. "Just a job," he would say, dismissing concerns about the chemicals. "It pays the bills." Those words, once so innocuous, now felt like a burden. How many lives had been affected by that place? How many families had suffered as a result? Sitting at the small kitchen table, Ryan stared at the scattered papers before him. The reports outlined chemical spills, negligence, and cover-ups. Each page was a reminder of a past that refused to stay buried. He thought about his family's suffering, the illness that had taken his father too soon, and felt a tightening in his chest. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room as he rifled through the documents once more. The names of the officials jumped out at him, people who had made decisions without facing the consequences. He thought of the town hall meetings, where families lived in ignorance of the dark history that was being swept under the rug. Would they believe him? Would they care? Each time he returned to the clearing, he felt the forest urge him to dig deeper. On one of those visits, he began bringing a notebook to jot down his thoughts. The animals remained conspicuously absent, as if they sensed a danger he had yet to comprehend. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to act. One evening, Ryan stood beside the half-buried barrels again, the fading light illuminating the site where truths had long been obscured. He could feel the weight of his discovery pressing down on him. "It's just land," he whispered, trying to convince himself that exposing the truth wouldn't shatter lives. But the echoes of his father's voice kept surfacing, urging him to think carefully. The days turned to weeks, and Ryan wrestled with the moral implications of silence. Should he protect the families or risk exposing them to painful truths? Each day, the weight of his decision bore down on him. He found solace in the routine of his work, patrolling the forest and observing the changes in wildlife, but the clearing haunted him, always on the outskirts of his mind, a reminder of what lay hidden. One rainy afternoon, he sought refuge in a small diner on the outskirts of town. It was a gathering spot for locals, filled with the familiar clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation. Ryan took a seat at the counter, ordering a cup of coffee that felt like a lifeline. He shared small talk with the patrons, but as he listened to their conversations, he couldn't shake the concern gnawing at him. "Have you heard anything about the factory?" Sarah, a childhood friend, asked, leaning in closer. "I've been hearing whispers that people are getting sick again." Ryan's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Just rumors. But a few families have lost loved ones. There are talks about a new report coming out." Her brow furrowed. "It's like history is repeating itself and no one's talking about it." Her words hit him hard. "I've seen some documents," he admitted, "about the chemicals they disposed of. It's worse than anyone knows." Her eyes widened. "You can't keep this to yourself. People need to know." Ryan hesitated, grappling with fear. "What if it backfires? What if I ruin lives? Or what if you save them?" she countered. "Think about what could happen if you don't act." In that moment, Ryan felt a flicker of determination. He had spent too long wrestling with his conscience. Over the next few days, he returned to the clearing, compelled to confront the shadows of the past that loomed over him. The following weekend, he decided to return to the clearing one last time. The air was thick with humidity, and a storm was brewing, casting an unsettling grey hue over the forest. As he stepped into the clearing, the familiar metal stakes seemed to shimmer, beckoning him closer. He crouched beside the wooden box and opened it, pulling out the reports once more. The documents felt alive in his hands, a testimony waiting to be told. Each page ignited a fire within him, especially one report detailing the harmful effects of the chemicals on local wildlife, a connection to his life's work. The thought of the animals suffering due to human negligence fueled his determination. With renewed clarity, he began taking notes, feeling the urgency of his mission deepen. Each page he filled was a step toward a truth he could no longer ignore. The clearing, once a site of despair, began to transform into a catalyst for change. Back at home, Ryan made a list of local contacts, journalists, environmental groups, anyone who would listen. He felt empowered, knowing others could share the burden and amplify his voice. As he wrote, he felt he was on the precipice of something monumental, a chance to create awareness, to stand up for the families who had suffered in silence. Days turned into a week, and Ryan continued his routine, but now with a renewed sense of purpose. He engaged more with the community, discussing his observations and the whispers of illness circulating around the diner. The townsfolk began to share their own stories, adding to the growing narrative of loss and resilience. One afternoon, as he sat in the diner with a family who had lost a son to illness linked to the factory, he listened to their grief, a raw and unfiltered pain that echoed deep within him. "He was only 20, the mother whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We still don't know what caused it." "I'm so sorry," Ryan said, heartache washing over him. "But I want you to know your story matters. I'm going to make sure people hear it." Each family he spoke with added layers to his understanding. The community, once shrouded in darkness, slowly began to awaken. They started to connect, to share not just their stories but their fears and hopes, realizing they were not alone. Ryan returned to the newspaper office with a collection of testimonies, feeling a sense of hope. The journalist welcomed him warmly, impressed by his diligence. "This is powerful," she said, flipping through the pages. "If what you're saying is true, this could be explosive." "Exactly," Ryan nodded, "but we need more evidence. Do you have specific testimonies?" Ryan felt a knot in his stomach. He hadn't considered that angle. "I'll talk to families." "I'll find them," he promised, determination flooding through him. As he gathered stories, he found himself at the diner again, sharing the news with Sarah and other locals. The atmosphere was charged, filled with a sense of urgency and purpose. They rallied together, families sharing their experiences, creating a tapestry of testimonies that would be impossible to ignore. The day of the article's release arrived, and the diner was filled with anxious energy. Ryan could feel the buzz of conversations, the weight of collective concern. He stood up, taking a deep breath as he addressed the crowd. "What we're about to read is not just an article, it's our story. It's our truth." He glanced down at the newspaper, the headlines bold and eye-catching. "This is about the lives that have been affected. It's time we hold those responsible accountable." And as patrons grabbed copies of the newspaper, Ryan stood back, watching as the words spread like wildfire, igniting conversations that had long been silenced. As the hours passed, the diner became a hub of emotion. People shared their stories, connected over shared experiences, and forged a bond that transcended pain. Ryan felt a sense of pride swelling within him as he witnessed the community come together, the collective hurt transforming into a rallying cry for change. That night, as he lay in bed, the echoes of the diner's conversations swirled in his mind. He felt a sense of peace, knowing he had done the right thing. The weight of the past remained, but it no longer felt insurmountable. Together, they would face whatever came next, armed with the truth and the courage to fight for a better future. And in that moment he realized that sometimes the hardest truths led to the most profound change. The clearing had become a catalyst for renewal, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal when met with honesty and courage. As the rain fell gently outside, Ryan drifted into a peaceful sleep, knowing that he had finally listened to the whispers of the forest, sparking a movement that would echo for generations to come. In the days following the article's release, the small town was abuzz with activity. The diner transformed into a hub of urgent discussions about the factory and the revelations that had surfaced. Ryan found himself at the center of this whirlwind, guiding conversations about the past and the uncertain future. As he sat at the counter, coffee steaming in front of him, he listened to the chatter around him. People were sharing their experiences and fears. Families were coming together, united by a common cause that had long been buried beneath years of silence. "Did you see the article?" one man exclaimed, waving the newspaper in the air. "They finally got it right. It's about time someone spoke up." Ryan nodded, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. "We need to keep the conversation going," he urged, trying to maintain momentum. "This is just the beginning." The town was divided. Some residents were grateful for the exposure, eager to confront the issues that had long been ignored. Others, however, felt threatened by the revelations, worried about the repercussions of speaking out, a fear cultivated over decades of silence. As the days turned into weeks, Ryan organized meetings at the local community center, inviting families to share their experiences in a safe space. The room was often filled to capacity, voices raised in both anger and support. Each story contributed to a growing awareness of the factory's legacy, one of loss, pain, and the lingering question of accountability. During one of these meetings, Ryan stood before the packed room, his heart racing as he prepared to address the crowd. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We're here to share our stories, to let every voice be heard. Our pain is real and it matters. We deserve answers." Applause erupted, but the sound quickly faded into murmurs of uncertainty. Ryan could see the faces of families grappling with grief, mothers with tear-streaked cheeks, fathers with furrowed brows, children who had lost parents too soon. The collective hurt was palpable and fueled his determination to push for change. As the weeks progressed, the pressure mounted. Reports of health issues continued to surface in the community, validating Ryan's claims. Families began connecting their loved ones' illnesses to the factory, drawing lines between their suffering and the negligence of those in power. Ryan found himself balancing the emotions of grieving families with his growing sense of responsibility. One night, after a particularly emotional meeting, he drove home through the winding mountain roads, his thoughts racing. He realized he couldn't do this alone. He needed allies who could lend expertise to the cause, people who understood the legalities and environmental implications of the factory's actions. The following morning, he reached out to environmental organizations and legal firms specializing in corporate negligence. His phone calls were often met with skepticism. Many were hesitant to get involved in a small-town issue, but Ryan pressed on, his conviction unwavering. "Every story needs a voice," he would tell them, his frustration growing with each rejection. "This isn't just about the past, it's about protecting the future for our children and grandchildren." It was during one of these calls that he connected with a young attorney named Mia, who specialized in environmental law. "I can't promise anything," she said, her tone serious, "but if you have evidence of negligence, we might be able to work together." Ryan felt hope surge within him. "I have documents, testimonies, everything we need to build a case. Can we meet?" The two agreed to meet at a coffee shop about an hour away, and Ryan spent the drive rehearsing what he would say. He felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This could be the turning point. When they finally met, Ryan laid out the documents and shared the stories he had collected from families. Mia listened intently, her eyes narrowing with concentration as he spoke. "This is compelling," she said, tapping her pen against the pages. "If we can gather more evidence and testimonies, we might have enough to take legal action against the factory." Ryan felt his heart race. What would that look like? What's our next step? Mia explained the process of filing a lawsuit, the potential challenges they might face, and the importance of building a strong case. But we need to act quickly, she warned. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to gather evidence. Determined, Ryan returned to the community, rallying support for their cause. He organized a town hall meeting, inviting Mia to speak about their legal options and the steps they could take to hold the factory accountable. On the night of the meeting, the room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. As Ryan opened the meeting, he looked around at the familiar faces, people he had grown up with, neighbors who shared his commitment to the land and community. "We're here tonight to talk about the future," he began. "We've suffered too long in silence. It's time for us to take action." Mia stood beside him, her presence commanding. "We have the opportunity to hold those responsible for the factory accountable. But we need your voices, your stories, to make this happen." She went on to explain the legal process, how they plan to gather evidence, and the importance of community support. "This is about more than just a lawsuit," Mia emphasized. "It's about demanding change, protecting our families, and ensuring that no one else suffers as you have." As she spoke, Ryan watched the room react, nodding heads, tearful eyes, and clenched fists. The emotions were raw, and the reality of their situation began to sink in. This was no longer just a conversation, it was a call to arms. After the meeting, Ryan felt a sense of urgency wash over him. He and Mia worked tirelessly over the next few weeks, gathering testimonies, research, and evidence. They created a survey for families to fill out, documenting health issues and potential connections to the factory. It was a daunting task, but with every completed form, they felt closer to building a case. As they delved deeper into the factory's history, Ryan uncovered a disturbing pattern of negligence. Documents revealed that the plant had repeatedly violated safety regulations, leaving toxic waste improperly stored and unreported. Each discovery fueled his resolve, and the mounting evidence began to rally support from the community. One chilly Saturday morning, Ryan and Mia set up a booth at the local farmers market, inviting families to share their stories and fill out the surveys. The response was overwhelming. People lined up, eager to tell their tales, each story adding to the growing narrative of loss and injustice. "Thank you for doing this," a woman said, her voice trembling. "We've been waiting for someone to listen." Ryan smiled, feeling a sense of purpose. "You're not alone. We're going to make sure everyone knows what happened." As the days turned to weeks, the community began to unite in ways Ryan hadn't anticipated. Fundraisers were organized to support legal costs, and volunteers stepped forward to help in any way they could. Signs began to pop up around town reading, "Justice for our families" and "No more silence." The growing movement began attracting attention from local media, and soon Ryan found himself participating in interviews and discussions about the factory's impact. The stories poured in from across the region, and what had started as a small-town issue was becoming a larger conversation about corporate responsibility and environmental justice. But with the increased visibility came scrutiny. The factory executives, feeling the heat, began to push back. Ryan received calls from concerned community members warning him of intimidation tactics that were surfacing. People were receiving anonymous threats, warning them to back down or face consequences. "Stay strong," Mia advised, her voice steady. "This is part of the process. They're scared of what we might uncover." But fear began to seep into the community. Some families, once eager to share their stories, began to withdraw, worried about the backlash. Ryan felt the weight of their hesitance. He understood their fears, but knew the importance of staying united. One evening, after another intense day of gathering testimonies, Ryan found himself alone in his cabin, staring out at the darkening forest. The wind howled outside, and he thought about the clearing, the place that had first revealed the hidden truths to him. It felt like a distant memory now, yet it was the catalyst for everything that had unfolded. As he prepared for bed, Ryan reflected on his journey. He had transformed from a quiet observer of nature to a fierce advocate for justice. The pain of his father's illness still lingered, but now it fueled his determination like a flame, illuminating the path ahead. The next morning, he awoke to a flurry of activity. Mia had called him early, her voice tinged with excitement. "We have a meeting with a prominent environmental organization interested in supporting our cause. They want to help amplify our message." Heart racing, Ryan quickly dressed and drove to the meeting location, a large community center buzzing with anticipation. When he arrived, he was greeted by passionate activists, environmental lawyers, and community leaders. The energy in the room was electric, and Ryan could feel the collective determination. As he spoke about their journey, the challenges they faced, and the stories of families that had come forward, he noticed nods of agreement and understanding among the attendees. It was clear they recognized the significance of what was at stake. "We have the chance to make real change," a lawyer said, leaning forward in his seat. "If we work together, we can hold the factory accountable and demand stricter regulations to prevent this from happening again." Ryan felt a surge of hope. This isn't just about our town. It's about every community affected by corporate negligence. With renewed vigor, they began to strategize. The meeting turned into a brainstorming session, fleshing out plans for a larger awareness campaign and rallying support from other towns and cities facing similar issues. Ryan realized their fight was part of a broader movement for justice, and he felt honored to be at the forefront. As the days turned into weeks, the movement gained traction. More families came forward, emboldened by the collective strength of the community. Ryan began to see a glimmer of hope for the future. The community was no longer overshadowed by fear. They were empowered, ready to stand up for what was right. Finally, after months of hard work, the day arrived when they would present their case to a judge. Ryan stood outside the courthouse, heart racing as families gathered around him, their faces filled with determination. He felt a sense of pride swell within him. They had come so far together. As they entered the courtroom, Ryan took a deep breath, reminding himself of the journey they had undertaken. The stories of pain and loss were etched in his mind, fueling his resolve to fight for justice. The hearing began, and the tension in the room was palpable. Mia presented their case, laying out the evidence they had gathered and the testimonies from families who had come forward. The judge listened intently, and Ryan felt a sense of hope as he witnessed the power of their collective voices being heard. The judge's ruling came, and as the words echoed through the courtroom, Ryan felt as if a weight had been lifted. They had won their case, but it was more than just a victory. It was a turning point for the community. As they stepped outside the courthouse, the sun shining brightly, families embraced each other, tears of joy and relief streaming down their faces. Ryan felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the support of his community and the strength they had shown throughout the process. That evening, as he sat with Sarah and Mia at the diner, the atmosphere was electric with celebration. They shared stories of resilience, laughter, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. The journey had been long and hard, but they had done it together. As Ryan looked around at the faces of those he had fought for, he felt a warmth in his heart. They had uncovered the truth, faced the darkness together, and emerged stronger than ever. The fight was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next. In that moment, he realized that the whispers of the forest and the echoes of the clearing had led him to this place of unity and strength. The journey had transformed him, and he knew he would carry this experience with him for the rest of his life. As they raised their glasses in a toast to what lay ahead, Ryan felt a profound sense of hope. The factory might have tried to silence them, but they had found their voices. Together, they had created a movement that would resonate for generations to come. And as the stars began to twinkle outside, he understood that the path to justice was not merely about uncovering the past. It was about building a future where truth and accountability would stand strong, ensuring that their stories would never be forgotten. In the wake of their hard-won victory, the community felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The court ruling against the factory was not just a legal triumph. It validated the pain they had endured and set the stage for meaningful change. Ryan stood at the center of this awakening, a blend of pride and responsibility weighing heavily on him. In the weeks that followed, the impact of their victory rippled through the town. News of the ruling spread beyond their borders, inspiring similar movements in neighboring communities where industrial negligence had gone unchecked. Ryan received calls from activists and families, sharing their stories and seeking guidance. It was humbling to see their fight inspire others. One sunny afternoon, Ryan attended a meeting at the community center organized by a local environmental group. Families gathered to discuss next steps, their faces glowing with determination. Mia stood at the front, outlining a plan to ensure that the factory would be held accountable. "This ruling sets a precedent," she explained. "We need to push for legislation that protects our environment and health. Together, we can draft proposals to hold industries accountable." Ryan watched as hands shot up, eager to contribute. The community was empowered, ready to take action. He felt a swell of gratitude for Mia, whose guidance had been invaluable in navigating the complexities of the legal system. As weeks turned into months, Ryan, Mia, and volunteers began drafting proposals aimed at increasing environmental regulations. They gathered data, testimonies, and scientific research to support their case, aiming to present a unified message to lawmakers. The community rallied around the cause, attending meetings and raising awareness. One evening, Ryan and Mia prepared for a rally at the town square. As they set up, Ryan looked at the families gathered, a tapestry of resilience and unity. They were all tied together by shared experiences and the pursuit of justice. As the rally began, Ryan took the stage, feeling the weight of expectation. "Thank you for being here tonight," he said, his voice steady. "Together, we are not just fighting for our past, but for a future where our families can thrive without fear." The crowd erupted in applause. Ryan shared stories of courage, highlighting the importance of their movement and the need for legislative change. Families recounted their experiences, each testimony reinforcing the urgency of their mission. The energy in the air was palpable, collective spirit rising as they rallied for change. When the rally concluded, they collected signatures for a petition advocating for stricter regulations. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds eager to lend their support. Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were building a movement that could not be ignored. Ryan and Mia submitted their proposals to local lawmakers, accompanied by the petitions and testimonials collected from the community. They attended meetings with representatives, passionately advocating for change, but there were challenges. The factory officials attempted to undermine their efforts, emphasizing economic concerns over community health. "We can't prioritize profit over people," Ryan argued firmly during one of the meetings. "We need accountability. We must protect our future." The response was mixed, but Ryan remained undeterred. He knew they needed to keep pushing, rallying support within the community. One evening, Ryan received a call from Mia. "We have a meeting with the Environmental Committee next week," she said, excitement in her voice. "They want to hear from us." Ryan felt a flicker of hope. "What do we need to prepare?" We need to present the data and testimonials. Everything. This is a big opportunity. As they prepared for the meeting, Ryan felt the tension rise. They worked late into the night, crafting their presentation to ensure it was clear and powerful. The stakes were high, and he knew they had to make an impact. The day of the meeting arrived. Ryan, Mia, and community members gathered in the conference room, anticipation thick in the air. As Mia began their presentation, Ryan felt pride swell within him. She spoke clearly, outlining the evidence they had gathered and the personal stories underscoring the urgency of their cause. When it was Ryan's turn, he stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "We're here today not just to recount our experiences, but to demand change," he said. "We can no longer allow corporations to prioritize profit over the health and safety of our families." The room was silent as he shared his father's story, explaining the illness that had claimed him and the legacy of pain that had driven them to fight. "This is personal for all of us," he continued. "We must ensure that our children and grandchildren do not suffer the same fate." Yes, as the presentation concluded, committee members expressed their interest. This moment could be a turning point for their community. In the following weeks, Ryan received updates about the committee's discussions. The community rallied around the cause, writing letters and attending meetings to advocate for legislative change. As the days passed, they felt momentum building. Finally, on a crisp fall day, Ryan received the news they had been waiting for. The bill had passed. The community erupted in celebration, tears of joy reflecting the struggle they had endured. Ryan felt overwhelmed by gratitude. They had fought tirelessly for this moment, and it had finally arrived. Standing among his friends and neighbors, Ryan reflected on the journey they had undertaken together. From the clearing that sparked his quest for truth to the rally that united families, they had forged a path toward justice. As the crowd celebrated, Ryan knew this victory was just the beginning. The factory may have tried to silence them, but they had found their voices, and together they had created a movement that would resonate for generations to come. In that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ryan felt a deep sense of gratitude. The fight was far from over, but they had proven that change was possible when a community stood together. And as he looked out at the faces of those he had fought for, he knew they would continue to rise, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the weeks following the bill's passage, the community felt an invigorating sense of purpose. The ruling against the factory was not merely a legal victory, it validated the pain they had endured and set a powerful precedent for future accountability. Ryan stood at the center of this renewed energy, grappling with both pride and a deep sense of responsibility. As he walked through town one bright morning, he passed by the old factory. Its looming presence was a stark reminder of their struggles. The once bustling building now sat silent, with shattered windows and peeling paint, a haunting testament to the lives it had affected. Even in its decay, Ryan knew it symbolized their fight for justice and the path forward. Determined to build on their victory, Ryan gathered with Mia and community leaders in the same room where they had held countless meetings. "We need to establish a task force," Ryan proposed, glancing around the group. "One focused on monitoring the factory's compliance with the new regulations and supporting those affected by its past actions." Mia nodded enthusiastically. "That's a great idea. We could involve local health professionals to provide support and resources for families grappling with ongoing health issues." The group began brainstorming how the task force would be structured, discussing outreach programs, educational workshops, and community health screenings. Their goal was clear: to ensure that no one in their community would have to endure the suffering they had faced again. In the following weeks, the task force gained momentum. They held meetings, distributed flyers, and reached out to local health organizations. Volunteers stepped forward to assist, and the community rallied around this initiative. Ryan felt a swell of hope within him as he witnessed this transformation. They were turning pain into purpose. One day, at the community center, Ryan met Agnes, an elderly woman who had lived in the town her entire life. She had raised her children in the shadow of the factory, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "I've seen too much suffering," she said. "We have to make sure our children inherit a healthier environment." Agnes's words resonated deeply with Ryan. "You're right," he replied, his heart swelling with determination. "We need to ensure that our children grow up in a community where they feel safe and valued." The task force organized a health fair to provide screenings and information for families. The event was a significant success, drawing hundreds of community members. Ryan felt a sense of pride as he watched families interacting with health professionals, asking questions, and learning about preventive care. The day of the health fair was bright and warm, filled with laughter and camaraderie. Booths lined the community center, offering screenings, educational materials, and resources. Families gathered to share stories and connect over shared experiences. Ryan moved through the crowd, witnessing the community embrace this opportunity for healing and education. Yet beneath the surface, Ryan knew that challenges remained. The factory still stood, and although they had made strides in accountability, the scars it left behind were deep. He felt compelled to address the past while building a healthier future. A few weeks later, Ryan received a call from Mia. "The factory has requested a community forum," she said, urgency in her voice. "And what do they want?" Ryan asked, concern creeping in. "They want to discuss their plans for compliance with the new regulations and address community concerns. We need to be prepared." Ryan nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. "We can't let this forum be a PR stunt. We need to hold them accountable and demand transparency." As they prepared for the forum, Ryan gathered testimonials from community members, ensuring their voices would be heard. "We've come too far to let them sidestep accountability," he reminded the task force during their preparations. The forum day arrived, and Ryan entered the community center, heart racing. The room buzzed with anxious energy as community members filled the seats. Factory representatives sat at the front, exuding confidence. Ryan listened closely as they presented their compliance strategies, but frustration bubbled within him. Their language was filled with corporate jargon, glossing over the real concerns of the community. When the time for questions arrived, Ryan stood up, his heart pounding. "We need to know what specific actions you're taking to address the health issues caused by your negligence. We need transparency, not just promises." The representative shifted uncomfortably. "We're committed to compliance and improving our operations. We'll provide a more detailed report in due time." "But that's not enough," Ryan pressed, feeling the support of the community behind him. "You've had years to address these issues. We need accountability right now." As other community members stepped forward, sharing their stories, the tension in the room escalated. They made it clear they would not settle for vague assurances. The factory representatives appeared taken aback by the community's resolve, and Ryan felt a sense of unity among the crowd. In the days following the forum, Ryan felt a renewed determination. The community had rallied around their cause. He received updates about the factory's discussions, feeling hopeful that they were making real progress. One evening, Ryan received a call from Mia. "We need to organize a rally to show the committee that the community supports stricter regulations," she suggested. Determined to make their voices heard, Ryan set to work organizing the rally, reaching out to families, friends, and supporters. As the date approached, excitement filled the air, and Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. On the day of the rally, The sun shone brightly as families gathered in the town square. Banners waved and chants filled the air, echoing their demand for change. Ryan stood on a makeshift stage, scanning the crowd. This was a testament to their collective strength. As he spoke, the energy of the crowd fueled his words. Today, we stand united for our families and our future. We will not back down. We will not be silenced. The rally concluded with a powerful show of solidarity as families signed letters in support of the proposed bill. Ryan felt a wave of hope wash over him. They were building a movement that could not be ignored. As the months unfolded, Ryan watched as the community continued to rally around their cause. They transformed their pain into action, and with each step forward, Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just survivors. They were champions of change, committed to ensuring a healthier future for their children. Together, they faced every challenge with resilience, ready to forge a new path for their community. Ryan understood that their journey was far from over, but they had proven that change was possible when a community united. With the strength of their shared experiences, they would continue to rise, determined to protect their future and honor the memories of those who had suffered. And as the stars began to shine in the evening sky, Ryan felt a sense of peace wash over him. They were finally taking control of their destiny. As the community settled into a new rhythm, Ryan felt a mix of hope and reflection wash over him. The passage of the bill and the creation of the task force marked significant milestones, but the scars of the past still lingered. The journey toward healing was ongoing, and the memories of those who had suffered were woven into the fabric of their progress. One evening, Ryan found himself at the clearing by the old oak tree, his sanctuary. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue across the landscape, and it was here that he often pondered their fight for justice. He thought of his father and how the pain had ignited his own journey. "I wish you could see this, Dad," Ryan murmured. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves as if nature were echoing his sentiments. In the weeks that followed, the task force continued its work. They organized community meetings, health screenings, and educational workshops, empowering families with information about environmental health. Ryan witnessed a renewed engagement. The community was coming together not just to advocate for change, but to embrace a shared legacy. One night, during a community gathering, Ryan stood before a room filled with familiar faces. "Thank you for being here," he began, his voice steady. "Tonight, we honor the memories of those we've lost and commit to forging a better future for our children." The room grew silent as families shared their stories, some filled with pain, others with hope. Each testimony reinforced their resolve. Ryan listened, his heart heavy yet buoyed by the strength of their shared experiences. As the evening progressed, a young girl named Lily stood up, her small voice trembling. "My dad got sick from the factory," she said, looking around the room. "I miss him a lot. I want to help other kids so they don't lose their dads too." Ryan's heart swelled with emotion. "Thank you, Lily," he replied, his voice breaking slightly. "You remind us all why we fight. Your strength is an inspiration." After the gathering, Ryan felt a renewed sense of clarity. They weren't just advocating for change, they were creating a community that honored every story. Healing would come from not only accountability, but from embracing the shared history that bound them together. As the task force worked towards compliance with the new regulations, Ryan noticed the community thriving. Local businesses supported their initiatives, hosting fundraisers to sustain their efforts. The town was transforming, and Ryan felt a surge of hope. One afternoon, while organizing a community workshop, Mia turned to him. "You've become a leader for this community, Ryan." He shook his head, humbled. "I'm just one of many voices. We're all in this together." True, but your passion has ignited something in everyone, Mia said, admiration shining in her eyes. Ryan smiled, feeling warmth spread through him. I just want to honor those we've lost, he said softly. As they planned a town hall meeting to discuss ongoing compliance with the factory, Ryan felt apprehension building. They collected data on health impacts, gathered testimonies, and engaged local health professionals for insights. This meeting would be crucial to holding the factory accountable. The day of the meeting arrived, and Ryan entered the packed community center, his heart racing. The factory representatives sat at the front, ready to present their compliance plans. As they spoke, Ryan grew frustrated. Their corporate jargon avoided the real concerns of the community. When it was time for questions, Ryan stood up. What specific actions will you take to address the health issues caused by your negligence? We need transparency, not just promises. The representative shifted uncomfortably. We're committed to compliance. We'll provide a detailed report soon. Monsieur, but that's not enough. Ryan pressed, emboldened by the crowd's support. You've had years to address these issues. We need accountability now. As others shared their stories, the tension in the room escalated. They made it clear that the community would not accept vague assurances. The factory representatives appeared taken aback, and Ryan felt a sense of unity among the attendees. In the days following the forum, Ryan felt renewed determination. The community had rallied, and he received updates about the factory's discussions, hopeful that they were making progress. One evening, Ryan received a call from Mia. We need to organize a rally to show the committee that the community supports stricter regulations, she suggested. Determined, Ryan set to work organizing the rally, reaching out to families and friends. As the date approached, excitement filled the air, and Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. On the day of the rally, the sun shone brightly as families gathered in the town square. Banners waved and chants filled the air, echoing their demand for change. Ryan stood on a makeshift stage, looking out at the crowd, feeling the strength of their collective resolve. As he spoke, the energy of the crowd fueled his words. Today, we stand united for our families and our future. We will not back down. The rally concluded with families signing letters in support of the proposed bill. Ryan felt a wave of hope wash over him. They were building a movement that could not be ignored. As the months unfolded, Ryan watched the community continue to rally around their cause. They transformed their pain into action, and with each step forward, Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they faced every challenge with resilience, ready to forge a new path for their community. As the dust settled from the rally, Ryan reflected on the incredible journey they had undertaken. The community had come together, transforming their pain into a collective strength. Yet while they continued to fight for accountability, he understood that healing was a gradual process. One evening, Ryan visited the clearing by the old oak tree, a place where he often gathered his thoughts. As he sat on the familiar bench, he gazed at the horizon where the sun dipped below the trees. I hope you're proud of us, he whispered to the wind, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly as he embraced the present. We're doing this for you and everyone else who suffered. In the following weeks, the task force pressed on, but Ryan felt an urgency to keep the community's voice loud and clear. He reached out to local media, inviting them to cover their ongoing efforts and the stories of families still affected by the factory's legacy. It was crucial to remind everyone that their fight was far from over. The media coverage sparked a wave of support. Letters of solidarity flooded in from neighboring towns, and even local politicians began to take notice. Energized by this response, Ryan knew their determination was inspiring others to stand up for their rights. One day, Ryan received a call from Mia. "We've been invited to speak at a statewide conference on environmental justice," she said, excitement filling her voice. "This could be a huge opportunity to share our story." Heart racing, Ryan replied, "Absolutely, we need to make our message clear. This is our chance to advocate for all affected communities." They worked tirelessly to prepare a powerful presentation highlighting their journey, the factory's impact, and their ongoing fight for accountability. Together, they gathered testimonies, statistics, and photos that illustrated the personal struggles endured. On the day of the conference, Ryan felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as advocates from around the state gathered to share their stories. When it was finally their turn, Ryan stepped into the spotlight and took a deep breath. As he spoke, Ryan poured his heart into the presentation, sharing powerful stories of families affected by the factory's negligence. He urged the audience to recognize the collective strength of communities fighting for justice. The audience was captivated, and when he finished, applause erupted. Ryan felt a rush of emotion, realizing the impact of their message. Afterward, they were approached by several activists and organizations interested in collaborating on future initiatives. Leaving the conference, Ryan knew the journey was far from over, but with each step, they were forging a path toward healing and change. Together, they were not just survivors. They were champions of hope, ready to face challenges ahead, ensuring that their voices would always be heard.